Welcome to Catholic Education Matters, the podcast that celebrates the beauty of Catholic education, highlighting excellence in academics, athletics, and the transformative power of faith. Join us as we share the stories of those making a lasting impact on Catholic education. Let's begin. Good day, everyone, and welcome to Catholic Education Matters. My name is Troy Van Vliet, and I am very excited and enthused today to have Mr. Timothy Schmalz, a world-renowned Canadian sculptor, with us here. And we're going to be talking about some of his artwork. And Tim, welcome to Catholic Education Matters.
Well, thank you. I'm very happy to be here and take a break from sculpting and talk about artwork.
Oh, can't wait to get into it here with you today, because we have so many fun things to talk about. And I want to just give all of our listeners and viewers here a quick background on you, if I may. So if I could just take a minute, I'm going to read something off because I want to make sure I don't forget anything. But Tim is a world-renowned Canadian sculptor known for his deeply moving and spiritually profound religious artwork. His sculptures, often large in scale and rich in symbolism, are designed to inspire reflection, compassion, and faith. Tim's most famous artwork, the homeless Jesus, has been installed in cities around the globe, including at the Vatican. His art powerfully communicates gospel values without the need for words, inviting contemplation through visual storytelling. That is so true. He has created sculptures honoring the lives of saints, scenes from the Passion, and other sacred moments in Christian history. Many of his works are used in schools, churches, and public spaces to elevate the imagination and soul towards God. Tim has had the unique privilege of meeting Pope John Paul II, and his art has been blessed by multiple pontiffs. His upcoming installation at SJP2, our school, in Vancouver, presents a timely opportunity to explore the intersection of art, education, and spiritual formation, making him a meaningful and unique guest for Catholic Education Matters. Once again, welcome, Tim.
Well, thank you.
Yes. So let's get into it. First of all, so how long have you been sculpting? How did you get into this? What's your story with that?
It's a very interesting story, and I'll try to be brief on it. Since I was a teenager, I loved sculpture. I loved it. And there was something magnetic about it. There was something so physical about it and so real about the idea of sculpture specifically. And I think early on I had the attraction to material things. And when you can actually, as a child, invent or create the material things you want without asking your mother for them, it's a great, great key. And so I remember sometimes I would wish I would have this little toy. And I discovered that I could instantly get it by actually sculpting it, or even drawing it and cutting out the drawing. And so I was at an early age, like even pre-teenager, in love with the idea of artwork, and that's kind of akin to being a very physical person, and the idea of wanting to own things, wanting to possess things, part of human nature. And so when I got older, when I was 16, I did one sculpture at high school that was like, oh my God, I want to do this the rest of my life. Ironically, it was a man sleeping with kind of a Dante-like dream demon coming down. But it was such a beautiful execution at that age of 16. And I fell in love with the idea of working with sculpture. Move on to 1 year later. Though I was baptized as a Catholic, I really felt I had a conversion experience when I was 17. And I grew up in a very secular, very art-filled family, but Christianity was very much minimalized. But I had this conversion experience that made me absolutely identify as a Christian at that point. And like I mentioned before, even though I was baptized Catholic, it was very soft surroundings I was in.
Hmm.
And so just put that aside for a minute. 18, 19, I'm obsessed with doing artwork. I'm reading books on artwork in my spare time. I basically squeezed by high school with the only real good mark was basically my art class. But that mark led me to be accepted to the Ontario College of Art, which was actually at the time the most prestigious art school in Canada. And I also at that time, my last year of high school, I won a national sculpting prize, first prize for one of my sculptures. So I was like totally excited that I am going to pursue this desire of mine to be a sculptor. I get to Ontario College of Art. I last 3 months. I drop out.
Oh
I
no.
I go through the best way I can call it is an artistic crisis. Um, I thought, what the hell am I doing with my life? I'm chasing these ideas that are shocking for the sake of shocking. I was basically looped into the idea that in order to be an artist, you actually have to do something absolutely radical. And during that time, you're talking about artists that would do sculptures and art installations with blood, and then they were getting attention because it was real blood. Or,
Oh
oh,
yeah.
let's do a sculpture of a man with crap, and it would get attention because it's real crap. And I'm like,
Mm.
I don't want to spend the
Wow.
rest of my life doing this, right?
Yeah.
I don't,
Yeah.
it's not worth sacrificing someone's life. I knew I was essentially an obsessive person. And I thought, what a silly waste of a life if this is what I'm going to do with it, right? So I was at this artistic crisis. I was kind of dropped out or I was kicked out of Ontario College of Art. And I got a job, went back to my hometown in Elmira, got a job working in a factory cutting fabric. And that's in a sense where reality really hit me because the idea of what do I want to do the rest of my life was staring at me straight in the face because here I was with people that were, for their whole life working at a factory, right? And you want to hear a little weird
Yeah.
thing? That factory was
Okay.
in my that factory was in my hometown, Elmira, which I'm
Uh-huh.
in right now. And
Oh, okay.
actually, my studio here is
No, that's not the factory.
that factory I
Wow.
went in
Wow.
19. It was so weird because it's a big old building, and I love old old factories as studios because there's a lot of light in it, a lot of character. So I
Yeah.
went up here. And I'm like, wait a minute, this used to be Park Avenue Fabrics, and I said, yep,
Yeah.
not much has changed. So what's really weird is sometimes I think about being here at 19 cutting fabric in this very room. I'm actually using the big tables that were left here to put my sculptures on. But I thought if God had a sense of humor when I was
Yeah.
19 and I was in a massive crisis, I remember looking out actually one of those windows over there when it was springtime and
Yeah.
thinking, if I don't leave this factory, I'm going to be 55 years old in the same room. Why I'm in the same room. And God had a great opportunity to make it in his godlike voice, Tim, you're going to be here when you're 50. And I would say, no,
Wow.
no, no. And then he would say, wait a minute, it will be your studio. So anyway, I left OCA, got a job working in a fabric company, cutting fabric, and then I just realized I have to start doing my artwork. I went back to Toronto, got my first studio at 19, and I started sculpting. The key is I changed what I was sculpting. My
Mm.
studio, although it closed at Ontario College of Art, became the great masters. I was looking at books. I was looking at the artists that really impressed me as a child: Da Vinci, Michelangelo. And the key was, at this time, I realized that the reason why their artwork was awesome was because what they were representing.
Mm.
And that's what was never taught, and it's very rarely taught at school, at art school, right? It's always develop a style, develop something very, very unique. It didn't say that artwork is just a form of propaganda. It didn't say that artwork is just a tool for communicating, that you're trying to promote something. And no matter what you're doing with artwork, you're making a message. And so you better have a good message to go from, or you're not going to have a good piece of artwork. And so what I realized early on is that in order to have an epic piece of artwork, you need an epic subject matter. And I'll give you an example here. If you take the Sistine Chapel ceiling and change the subject to picnic in Paris, it's not going to be a great piece of artwork, even though you got the same skill set, you got the same colors, you got the same ceiling. Picnic with Paris would not bring in millions and millions of people. The reason why the Pieta, Michelangelo's Pieta, is awesome is not because of slab of marble that he used, although it was a good one, not because of skill, although he was skillful. It's because of the subject matter. And then I realized that it's all about the subject matter. And the people that told me throughout my adolescence and teenage years, develop a style, develop a style. What I realized is I don't want a style. A great piece of artwork, the style will disappear. Ideally, if I do a sculpture, they won't even know it's a sculpture. They will just see it, what I'm being representing there, what I'm trying to bring people's attention to. And it's almost like you have a passage of scripture, and if you can make your sculpture so transparent that you don't even see it, but you see the scripture, that's a good piece of artwork. And if you're under that idea that you have to comb through the world and find the great things that need to be represented, and then represent them as authentic as possible, with as little of you in it and as much of the subject matter, it's going to be a great piece of artwork.
Right.
So this is what I learned at that age. So I stopped doing anything but Christian artwork when I was 20. I refused to do anything else. I did my first crucifixion, and I was so blown away by it. I decided that this is what I'm going to do the rest of my life. In fact, I was the most radical. Ironically, they were teaching me to be radical at art school.
Yeah.
And I was the most radical artist because people didn't even consider what I did artwork. It wasn't even artwork. But that's how I knew I was doing something great.
Wow. So how long have you been producing these Christian pieces then? How old were you then when you started doing that?
I was 20 years old. I'm 55 right now. And so I have done nothing but. And also, I've been working, like usually I work, I wake up at 4 or 5 in the morning, I start sculpting. And I do this 7 days a week. And so it's almost like, you have dog years and people's years. Well, you also have obsessive sculptor years. And so in a sense, if you would say that throughout my whole life, and you take the amount of hours I spent on it, I've been sculpting for 100 years.
Wow.
Which is great. So basically what happens is I can have a lot of chances to hit that masterpiece, to find or to untie the knot on how to represent a saint or a scripture, because I put little value, little currency on my hours. And if I did, then I would be missing quite a bit of things. See, the idea is, I think that if you're doing a piece of artwork, you never know how it will come to you. It's like St. Francis of Assisi, where you're just an instrument of God's peace. Mm-hmm. And the idea of the instrument is very good. I think a perfect analogy for artwork. And so the more pieces that you do, the more you're not afraid of throwing yourself completely at it. The better your chances are of getting a real cool, amazing sculpture out of it. And the perfect example that I can give just quickly is the human trafficking sculpture. The Vatican asked me to do a sculpture on St. Paquita on the theme of human trafficking. So I started this piece, and it was victims of human trafficking in a slave cart. And so I was working on this in this studio just over there. I was working on it for week in, week out. It was really developing. It was really looking good. And then one night I went and I researched, like I did throughout the whole process of research on human trafficking. I was so depressed and shocked at what specifically I read that evening. I went back to my studio and I said to myself, they're sucking our children underground. And the moment that idea of what human trafficking is it's sucking our children underground, I had the idea of having St. Paquita lifting up the ground and letting the oppressed go free, letting the victims of human trafficking out from the underground. And I thought about doing this as a sculpture. And then I thought, man, that is epic. That is what I should be doing. I shouldn't be doing a slave cart. I shouldn't be doing human traffic people put in a little cart. I should have them coming out of the ground and Saint Paquita being the hero. And then I said, well, you've already spent 2 weeks on this first concept. Let's just keep working on the first concept. And I just realized that I had to say, well, forget about the 2 weeks. If I keep working on this, I'm going to deprive myself of doing the better piece. So I trashed it. And I was like 2 weeks of my life gone, right? But I had to do that in order for the new piece to come in. And
just a stepping stone, right?
Yeah. And so it's often like that in a studio where if I have an idea, I'll throw myself at it to see what it looks like. And so I also take it as part of a ritual. And in my studio here, I perceive it kind of being like a chapel, right? Where I'm creating pieces. And part of that process is the spiritual. And the end result, great. You could have an end result. That's wonderful. And you might not. But the whole process is part of the experience or the prayer, so to speak, right? Yeah. And so one of the things that I've done to further that is always have the Bible or scripture playing. I'll kind of shuffle in St. Thomas Aquinas, City of God, some Chesterton and everything like that. But my go-to here for the sound in the studio is the sound of scripture. And so I try to bring up certain things in my ritual here that makes it possible for, in a sense, the Holy Spirit to get through one of these windows and come in here and land on one of my sculptures. And I've had experiences like that after the 9th hour or at 4:30 in the morning, something great comes. And it wouldn't have come if it was at 9 a.m. that I got here. No, it happens at 4:30, or it happens at 5 o'clock when I'm exhausted. Something great comes to mind, right? A eureka moment, so to speak.
Yeah. That is amazing. The story, like I can't even in this quote 100 years of sculpting that you've been doing. How many do you think, let's say, commercial type sculptures you've produced that? Because when I see them, I think like I can't even imagine how much work has gone into it, how much time it must take to produce one of these sculptures. How many do you think you've done?
No clue. No
No
clue.
clue.
Um, really, I actually stumble across some of the pieces that I completely forgot that I created. But
Wow.
one of the wonderful things about that is each piece that I do over the years, um, I develop, in a sense, a library of different ideas that develop over time. And part of the thing that I'm very much concerned about is using the pieces as preachers and coming to the stance that I know the power of artwork. I know the power of our religion.
Hmm.
And I know that the power of artwork and the power of Christianity, if you put those together in its distilled pure form and drop it down on a city street, it will blow people away. It will
Right.
convert people.
Right.
The weak link in the chain is me. I don't think that the burden, the responsibility is on the viewer. I believe it's on me as a sculptor. And if this the piece doesn't move someone, it's on me. It's not on the scripture, and
Mhm.
it's not on the possibilities of artwork. Because I believe that the ideal pieces of artwork are so powerful that they have the power to convert. And I've had that experience with some of the pieces that I've created, like the homeless Jesus sculpture that's
Yeah.
actually in Vancouver at the Catholic Cathedral there.
Yeah.
Now, that piece has been installed and it still is being installed all around the world. And I've had a big responsibility after that piece was created because it made me understand how people are hungry for spirituality, and that oftentimes they're not given a helping hand. And I think that artwork can be that artistic hand that can pull people into the faith. And
Right.
oftentimes the hand is like this: stop it, right?
Yeah.
And I see that the challenge that I have is to untie the knot of scripture and the saints so people can see them. Because oftentimes our faith is invisible because our mainstream culture doesn't want to hear anything about it. Um,
Hmm.
and or it's represented in such a Mary had a little lamb, cookies and cream way that
Yeah.
the hardcore aspect of it is left buried. And so what I'm trying to do is pull it out. And
It's
so with
all,
all the, oh, go ahead.
yeah, no, I was going to say so many of these things today, it's all about, well, how does it make me feel? It's got to make me feel good. Otherwise it's not, otherwise I don't want it, I find that offensive, so I don't want it, or I find it, and that's wrong then, or it makes me feel uncomfortable. So back off or stay away. And that's not how life is. That's not reality. And
Yeah.
when artwork brings out like the homeless Jesus, that's an incredible piece. I've got I want to make sure I'm understanding you here, and I think I do. Because artwork should or can tell a story. And I remember going on a Europe tour when I was 16 with my parents and brother and sister, and we went all over, and we all over Europe, and we so many castles and so many you go into Paris and you go in the Louvre and you see artwork, like so much art, and some of it you just so well here's another painting. But if you're going on a tour and the tour guide actually tells you what the painting is about, now you see the painting totally different. Like it's this. Oh, okay, this story is, and this person over here. There was a scandal, and that's why that person was kind of put off to the side. So in the painting, although they were part of the family, there was scandal, or whatever the story is. So now you have a totally different appreciation of it. Now your artwork, I find the sculptures, they tell a story without it having to be said out loud. if that makes sense. Like just by looking at it, it's a moving piece of art. Like it can move the soul. How much of your art do you think tells a story without a verbal story being told about it? You know, without it having to be explained. Do you find that your art, like you're working on this piece right now with the child trafficking, when that or you're working on it, right? Is it done already? Or
Oh yeah, it's been done for a couple years.
okay, sorry.
Yeah.
So it's done. When people come to see it that know nothing about it, does it tell a story without having to, read up on it or anything like that? I'm just curious.
It better, or I don't think it's done its job.
Okay. All right. So your goal is that then you want it to
Yeah.
be a moving piece without maybe just a title, but without a book that that goes along with it.
Yeah. I think that our work, what I want to do is I want to create pieces of artwork that will perhaps sometimes even encourage people to pick up a book afterwards, or to do more research, or
Right.
more study on it. For instance, I created in Toronto, University of Toronto, St. Michael's College. I sculpted the Dante sculpture garden, which has 100 cantos of the Divine Comedy, 100 sculptures, each of the cantos of the Divine Comedy. And as I'm working on this, I'm thinking, here's the first time ever you have the Inferno, the Divine Comedy, Dante's Inferno, Dante's Purgatory, and Dante's Paradise. The first time ever each one of those cantos and each of the canticas have been sculpted. My hope is that this is going to encourage people to read the Divine Comedy, who is Dante. So each different canto, I would almost be like a movie director studying that canto, figuring out how can I entice people to learn more about Dante with this one canto. So I'll take an action scene, for instance, but then I have to be very conscious of, well, the people that already know Dante, I want them to experience this too and appreciate it. So what can I do? How can I represent this canto for the people that have known Dante their whole life? So it's a mix like that. But for instance, I just created an amazing sculpture, Padre Pio. He's my favorite saint. Padre Pio, you pick up any book on Padre Pio, and you probably won't get through the first chapter without understanding that he wrestled with demons. He fought demons, right? But then you look at all the Padre Pio sculptures out there, and he's just sitting there, very pious and upright, looks almost like a St. Francis sculpture, right? And I thought,
Right. Yeah.
if I was an 18-year-old and I wanted to convince someone to start to get to know Padre Pio, Padre Pio pious is not going to do it. Padre Pio fighting a demon will, because they probably have demons on their own that they're fighting. And here's a saint,
Yeah.
who looks very saintly, but there he is strangling a demon, ready to punch him in the face. That's going to get people excited. And so I think that what I do believe that it's the burden of the artwork to bring people in. And if it doesn't do that, it's not working. And I got to work harder then. And so I think that's I think what has to be done right now. And it's interesting because the Padre Pio, a lot of the Christian literature, Catholic literature, is really hardcore. It deals with so much of the challenges and realities of living a life, and it asks you quite a bit. And it's hard. But yet you look at most of the visual representations of our faith, and it's softened down. These are visual ambassadors. And so I do believe that, like, I've done pieces like the Holy Family, which has Joseph, Mary, and Jesus together. Very nice piece, and it's just all about peace. I feel so peaceful even when I look at it. I feel comforted. Christianity to me is a comfort, but it's also a slap in the face. It's also a punch in the gut, because it's asking you to be not just cookies and cream. not just in your own little comfort world. When Jesus asks you to see in the marginalized himself, and not pass by, and the amazing ideas like love your enemy. These are huge challenges, and I want to see that in artwork. I did this one sculpture of Jesus embracing a terrorist, and I thought, that's love your enemy, because love your enemy is not perhaps someone that just, well, maybe it isn't as well, but someone that insults you at a dinner party. Loving your enemy is someone also that wants to kill you. And to see, and it's interesting, but to see Padre Pio strangling and punching a demon, to see Jesus, his hands reaching out from in a prison, it in a sense brings to light the scripture or the saints in a way that I think artwork has that power to do it, right? Let me just mention this, one of my favorite quotes that I thought was very inspiring. It's by Oscar Wilde. He wrote this essay, Decay of Line. Oscar Wilde, the Irish playwright at the turn of the century. The quotation was talking about the value of artwork. And he mentioned in the essay, people in London didn't see the fog till the painters started painting it. And there is this power that artwork has about bringing attention to things that are oftentimes overlooked. And I think that's a power of artwork that is partial. Like, I think it's we've had it for thousands of years. When that crazy emperor wanted to kill all of his soldiers in China, so they'll go with him to the afterlife, and someone convinced him to make terracotta warriors, to make sculptures of them instead and put them in the tomb. The emperor thought, yeah, I see that. That's I get it.
Sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you know, you look at the desecration of in previous centuries of sculpture. Christians, you go to Europe and you'll see from the Protestant Reformation heads cut off of sculptures and everything like that. And even just recently in our Canada and United States, you know, let's tear down this statue here. Let's destroy this statue, right? Sculptures have always played a very important role in our culture. And so therefore, it does have that power. To use that power in a way to bring people closer to God, I think is one of the best uses of it. And so that's what I think. You know, yeah. Also have the idea of film that I think about too, because actually when I was working on a human trafficking sculpture, someone came up to me and my student said, "Did you see that blah 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 movie on human trafficking?" And I'm sculpting away, and I said, "Nope." And I thought, because I don't have 2 hours to sit there, right? Because I'm obsessed with sculpting. I don't have 2 hours to sit there. But, you know, when I was working on this piece, several people came up to me and said, "Have you seen this movie on human trafficking?" It was a couple of summers ago. And they're not saying that now. And it's like, where did that movie go? Yeah. Oh, I know where it went. It got buried by other awesome movies because the media of film
comes and goes.
Yeah, you can have something.
Sound of Freedom is probably the movie.
Yeah, that's it. About.
Yeah,
but you know what? It's with the film industry. You better get it out because it has an expiry date on it. When I put a sculpture out at a cathedral, it's there for not just 1 week, not just a month, not just a year, not just a decade, but it's there infinitely. Yeah. Because bronze sculptures last 1,000 years. And so it's a message that is quiet too. You don't have to sit down for 2 hours to take it in. You can use your eyes for 2 minutes and take it in. And so and also you got brilliant films, but there are so many people working on trying to get that attention to you. Hey, you come over to my little room, watch my film for 2.5 hours, right? And that's a lot of competition. That's a lot of struggle for that. Sculpture stands alone because it lasts long, and also, quite frankly, because there's not very much of it out nowadays. So you have those two things that are very powerful that bring people to it, right?
That's right. That's right. Let's there's actually three sculptures that I want to talk about here. First of all, your most famous one, Homeless Jesus, which we've mentioned already. Can you describe that? We'll get a picture up on the screen for those that are watching this on YouTube, but can you describe it to people and what inspired that and what's the story behind it?
Okay, so very rarely, there's times that I don't leave my studio because I'm just working nonstop, and I'm in Elmira, and it's like way far away from Toronto. So it was a time where I was totally immersed in my sculpture, and it was months since I've been to a big city, literally like around 3 months or so. I'm going to deliver a sculpture at St. James Cathedral in downtown Toronto, and I am right on University Avenue, one of the big streets in Toronto. And in the middle of the day, I see in the middle of the sidewalk a person, a human form, completely shrouded with a blanket, and it just hit me. Um, Unlike other times, I just basically said that is Jesus, and that was the insight that I have on it, and it really did not leave me. It was like the blanket covered that figure. I don't know if it was a male or a female. There was like a blanket of that idea that was just covering myself as an artist. And so I went back to Elmira, and I thought, well, I'm a sculptor. Why don't I sculpt that experience about feeling that you've seen Jesus in the least? So I started to create the homeless Jesus. And the interesting thing is that I wanted to keep it quite close to what I saw there. So the whole figure is covered with a blanket. However, I
Hmm.
wanted people to know it was Jesus, so I just rolled up the blanket on the feet, so I could
Hmm.
show the wounds of being on the cross, the stigmata. As I was working on that too, I was sitting there beside the feet, and I thought, this is the closest I've ever been to a homeless person, and it's actually a sculpture of a homeless person. I thought I'm going to leave a little bit of space on this seat so someone can sit there. And so that's how the homeless Jesus was created. It was one, and this is ironic because I pride myself in locking myself up in my studio, but it was the time where I left my studio that the eureka moment of that piece occurred to me by an experience of feeling that I saw Christ within a homeless person, and then creating a sculpture on it. But the fascinating thing is that it was very spontaneous, the creation of it, and only afterwards did I realize how it's almost like theater. So many
Hmm.
people have seen that sculpture and thought they saw a real person, and a lot of people attribute it to my great skill as a sculptor. However, to do a sleeping person is quite easy. It's to do a tennis player that's in the middle, or an ice skater that's in the middle of speed, that would be difficult. But a person lying asleep, and a sculpture is very similar. They don't move. The reality is blurred there. So people see the sculpture of this shrouded figure, and oftentimes they call the ambulance or the police. I just had a couple of months ago the sculpture in Warsaw. Someone sent me a note that uh, the piece got massive attention because the paramedics were trying to revive the sculpture. They got there and then realized it was a sculpture. People
Wow.
all over have had to
Wow.
take a second look, and because they think it's a real person. And some of them are calling the cops because there's some vagabond on a bench, and others, you got to get here quick, ambulance. I think someone's dead, right? So the blurring of the artwork within the environment, and then you realize only later it's a representation of Jesus. So first of all, you might think it's a real homeless person. Okay, it's a sculpture of a homeless person. And only with a closer inspection do you see the wounds, and then you realize it's Jesus. And the fascinating thing is, one of the best um, explanations of this was actually from the University. Regis College installed the first one here in Ontario. And a chaplain of a high school came up and said, "You know what? The first time I saw that sculpture, I thought, leave it to the Jesuits to put a sculpture of a homeless person in front of their school." So he went and he sat down on a bench, and he was about to put his hands on the feet, and only then did he realize the stigmata. And then only then did he realize it was Jesus, and it freaked him out. It was like, I just had a moment there, right? And so the idea that it's almost like theater very much conforms with, and I think Matthew 25 is one of the most poetic passages of the Bible. And it works because there's that eureka moment. There's that ambiguity at the beginning. When did we feed you? When did we visit you when you were in prison? And then the punch comes with, it's when you've done it to the least. And that's how the sculpture conforms. So I think it's a perfect example about how it's almost a visual translation of scripture, and it's done in a way that people can see it. That sculpture there, I've had so many people say, "I'm not religious, but I like that piece," or "That's amazing." And I think that's one of the best. And I'm thinking, well, that's the distilled Christian message. So
Is it
that's
ever?
what you, yeah. So that's what
Is
you
it
have to
ever?
think about. What you they start out, I'm not religious, and what they're saying is, I don't believe in waking up early Sunday to go to church. I don't pray the rosary,
Hmm.
but I like that sculpture. They're saying, but I like the hardcore, pure elements within the Gospels. And
Wow.
so I think it's
What a compliment to you on that. Like it's absolutely incredible. How many of those have you reproduced around the globe? Do you know?
it's always growing. I have one stipulation that when I first created the piece, I thought it'd be nice if this sculpture would go all over the world. And in fact, right now it's amazing that it is being installed. One right now is being installed in Edinburgh, Scotland, at St. Mary's Cathedral. And earlier this year, the Protestants installed one in Hong Kong. I think it was the Methodists, right in
Nice.
downtown Hong Kong. So the sculpture is always being installed in different areas. And actually, right now, one of the homeless Jesus sculptures is probably, well, in a matter of a week or even a couple of days, will be installed on the Camino in Spain at the
Oh,
final place where you go to
nice.
get your certificate. They're
Yeah.
placing it in that park up there. So the sculpture, even now, even though I did the piece 10 years ago, is still really
Still go,
doing, yeah,
still popular, still spreading around. So
yeah.
would you have two out there? 22, 202, if you had to take a wild guess?
I'd probably say around 200.
Wow.
Yeah, and they're all in
Congratulations.
cities. Thanks. They're all in cities that there's space between them. And this
Yeah.
is interesting because the Cardinal of Hong Kong, he said, "I want the homeless Jesus." And I said, "Well, I wish I would have known that a couple of months ago, because the Methodists just bought it and they're putting it in your city. I
Right.
can't do two, right?"
So
But
you
what
want to
I
spread them. Yeah.
Yeah, but what I did do is I did believe that scripture sometimes warrants more than one sculpture. And I for sure felt that with Matthew 25. So I created when I was in prison. I created a sculpture when I was a stranger. I created a sculpture when I was sick, you visited me. So I've created like
Mm.
6 different sculptures that create that whole passage in
Oh,
fragments
amazing.
that can be appreciated. So the Cardinal of Hong Kong, he's putting all 6 of the different pieces throughout his city, which is
Love it.
amazing.
I absolutely love it.
And
Wow.
that's what all of these pieces are in Rome, which is which is splendid. And what they just did during a Jubilee is create a pilgrimage within my sculptures that are in different places in Rome. So you can go to the one at St. Paul's outside the walls, and it will lead you to the next one, which is in St. Peter in Chains near the Colosseum. Starts out at the couple of sculptures I have in the Vatican, but it brings you around on this, right? But yeah, that piece really, I feel, was a big eye opener for me, because I did that piece. I did that piece when I was like 45, and after spending from 20 to 45 obsessively doing sculpture, do you think I thought there was nothing left to do with Christianity? No, I just got started, and that confirmed to me that this is an endless well of sculptures that can come out of this not only scripture but also the saints. Oh yeah, and because we continue to build on the saints. I just did 2 sculptures of Carlo Acutis that are being shipped to Assisi for his canonization.
Love it.
And so we always, as Catholics, we always add to the opportunity for sculptors to do more work, right?
Yeah. Yeah. We need more of it. We need more of the reminders throughout. I mean, whether it's in the front of a church or the front of a Catholic school, or whether it's just in the middle of the city somewhere as a reminder for us going by to see some of these incredible works, that they're just the reminder of that story and how it's supposed to impact our lives. Congratulations to you, and God bless you for doing that. I want to change gears though and go to, I'm going to switch over to our school, which is just being completed right now. In a couple of months, our new campus is going to be opened. So we'll be moving our small little school into our new big campus in the South Surrey White Rock area, and in British Columbia, for those of you that are tuning in from around the world. The King family has so graciously donated one of, I think it's a famous piece of yours as well, and it's the Last Supper table. And it's built out of granite, and the seats at the Last Supper are empty, except for Jesus, which is there sitting at the Last Supper in bronze. And this is going to be right. We have a courtyard in our school, and it sits right outside of the dining hall where the kids have lunch every day. And we've got these overhead glass garage doors that open up out into the courtyard area, so that in the fall and in the springtime during school, that they'll be able to go out and have lunch in the courtyard as well. And right in the center of all of that is this Last Supper table that you have produced, and we're anxiously awaiting for its arrival. We've built a nice concrete pad for it to be bolted down to, and I cannot wait to see this piece in real life. Can you tell us a little bit about it and what's inspired you?
Well, thank you so much for talking about the Last Supper and mentioning the King family. I just have to say something, that if it wasn't for the King family, this sculpture would not be there. And I do believe that, like a lot of my sculptures, they are, in a sense, the face of our faith. And so by private patrons actually doing this, they're giving that visual ambassador. They're making it so, in a sense, real, the message. And so if it wasn't for them, that message would never get out there. So I have to thank the family, as well as all my other patrons that make these sculptures a reality. Get them out of my studio, so to speak. Mm-hmm. If not, they would just be here. And but the sculpture, I created that piece at a different studio in Kitchener at the time, and I remember I was thinking about the idea of the Last Supper. And I thought, you know what? This is probably one of the most iconic symbols in Christianity, the Last Supper. I've
Mm-hmm.
seen so many different artists do renditions of it. Well, most notably, Da Vinci's painting of the Last Supper. And I thought, how many times is that done, reproduced around the world for how many centuries? And I thought, I am going to actually create my own Last Supper. And so that's basically my mission at this point in time. And this is like, I don't know, I was like at least 30 years ago, right? Um, no, it wasn't. Yeah. No, it might have been like, uh, let's see, I might have been 32 at the time. So,
Mm-hmm.
so uh, it was a time where I was really confident and I wanted to fill in some blind spots within my artwork.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought the Last Supper would be a great one. So I started working on this piece. And then I realized that I didn't want it to be, in a sense, an ornament. And this is a big shift. That piece is a big shift in my way of perceiving artwork. If the sculpture is too ornamental, people are going to think that our faith is ornamental because it's projecting its message out and silently preaching, right? And so I thought, I am going to create a Last Supper with 12 empty seats. And so when you look at it, when no one's there, say at like midnight, you're driving by and you see it in front of the school, there's going to be this beckoning, this forlorn Jesus that's all alone. And so as I was working on it in my studio, I realized the power of that message because I'm taking the Last Supper, but then I'm actually putting a couple different meanings on top of it. Whereas that we have to become the apostles of Christ today.
Yeah,
That
absolutely.
and that the idea of our faith is not an ornament. It requires us to be a part of it. And that sculpture, bang, it just does it, right?
Yeah.
And so the sculpture has been installed in different places. I do believe that this is the first one in Canada, which is great. And if you see it with people sitting there, it has another meaning, right? If you see it with a bunch of children, it has a great message there. And in a sense, as soon as you walk into the piece, you become part of the art, which is awesome, right?
Yeah.
And so it's again, it's like the homeless Jesus, where it doesn't have a frame around it. It doesn't have a grandiose pedestal that you're supposed to look with your hands behind your back and isn't that
Mm-hmm.
interesting? Something that kind of requires you to become involved in it, and 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 it takes up a space that also the chairs are functional. I remember hearing one place in the United States, people love sitting there and eating their lunch at the table. And
Yeah.
I thought, well, isn't that great? Because one of my beliefs is that um, we limit Christianity and we put it in a little box. And we take that box out on Sunday and then we put it back in after Sunday. And
Yeah.
and artwork can kind of reflect that idea, but it also can say that no, you gotta like again Saint Francis, preach everywhere you go, and if necessary, even use words, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's like taking the idea of Jesus and taking him out of that framed piece and bringing like like your typical Da Vinci print, taking him off the wall and bringing him down into our lives, right?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I think that that's a nice message for the young people. I think it's a visual reminder, so to speak, that
Mm-hmm.
we are needed, and also that we shouldn't just put our faith in a little box and keep it there. That it's part of our landscape, just like this
Yeah.
piece will be.
St. John Paul II Academy is a Catholic school, of course. Um, but we'll have, many non-Catholics coming to the school too. They're welcome. And um, we wanted to make sure our Catholic school stays Catholic. So we've got like our chapel. You have to drive by our chapel to get into the underground parking lot. It's right over top of our front entrance. It's grand. It's huge. It's got a massive, modern, colored glass cross right in the front. That it's right. Which if you're inside the chapel, it's right. It's right in the sacristy, right behind the sacristy. So it's massive thing. We wanted to be so bold and put it right out there in front of everybody to see, so that this is who we are and you know what you're entering when you come into our school. The same thing we want to have throughout the school. So once you're inside the school, you'll know we're a Catholic school just based on some of what you see. And your sculpture is it's out, although it's outside, it's designed for outdoors. You see it from inside. We picked the most conspicuous place to put it. So it's right there. The kids see it every day when they're having their lunch. And they are also invited to sit at it when they're having their lunch as well, if they so choose. So that's one of the things that we wanted to put right in the forefront. Of course, we do have a bronze statue of a larger than life one, which also donated by the King family, God bless them, at the front of the school of St. John Paul II. We have one of those as well. And I'm glad to know that bronze is going to last for 1,000 years. Hopefully our school is there 1,000 years from now as well. And so I cannot wait to see the Last Supper installed in our courtyard there in our dining hall. So, we were going to take a picture of it and we're going to send it to you. And I hope one day you'll come out and actually visit it as well, so that you can see it and how it's being implemented and utilized, that it's something that is going to be impacting everybody for many, many, many years to come. And I'm going to change gears one more time, because there's one more piece that you have already produced that we still want to have, that we have to raise money for. I'm going to try and inspire. And it's for me, it's the most important piece that we would put in the school. As being, one of the original founders of the school, I had a vision, I had a motivation. And I have two daughters that were in an incredible elementary school, Star of the Sea, in the South Surrey White Rock area. We did not have a high school out there. My youngest daughter has Down syndrome. There's a long story that goes back, because when my wife and I found out that our youngest daughter was going to have Down syndrome, it was in utero. And we were all but encouraged over and over and over again, through the hospital, through BC Women, to have an abortion. And being people of faith, we were, it's like, absolutely not, absolutely not. All the way up until 6 months, they were telling us, hey, you can still have an abortion, which was just horrifying for us. And so we had little Annika was born, and she is the shining star of our, not just my immediate family, but my extended family. Everybody loves her to death. She's just been a true shining light. And it was her being born and her going to elementary school, that we were thinking so early on, where is she going to go to high school? We'd love to keep her with her friends that know her. Where's she going to go to high school? Because there was no Catholic high schools close by. And that inspired us starting St. John Paul II Academy. Had we not said yes to life, this school today would not be in existence. And that story needs to be told, not by me over and over again, but it needs to be told in our promoting life and choosing life, whether it's rejecting MAID or whether it's rejecting abortion. We want to embrace life. And you have a sculpture with the Blessed Virgin Mary and she's with child, and you can see it's like a cutaway. I'm just trying to describe it in my layman my layman way of describing it. And it is absolutely stunning. It's beautiful, and I want that in our front lobby in the center of the school so everybody sees it and knows what we're about and knows where how important that is, because every now and then I remind myself when I'm visiting the new campus and I'm there on site, and it's so easy to get caught up in work and getting it built, and then I realize, you know what, had we not said yes to life, this massive $80 million project, it'll be 130 million when it's all finished, wouldn't exist had we not said yes to life. And so, can you tell the viewers a little bit about the history of that sculpture and why we would want it so much in our school?
That is absolutely awesome. I want it there too. That is one of my favorite sculptures. I created the piece Angels Unawares. Pope Francis installed it in St. Peter's Square. Mm. It's talking about all human life is sacred within the context of migration. I then created the human trafficking sculpture called Let the Oppressed Go Free, which the Vatican also requested. It was installed at St. Paquita's hometown near Venice, Italy. And I wanted to do the third of this very important idea of all human life is sacred. And I have been, for many years, been very much concerned about the idea of abortion within our culture. Pope John Paul II, this is a culture of death. How much more accurate can you get after you think about what happens with abortions and how deeply it is promoted, if not encouraged, within our society? And it's just like, here we are in a lot. It's just, I find it, I could talk forever about the idea of a culture with abortion. But at the time, what I wanted to do was I wanted to create a sculpture. I was working on another pro-life sculpture, which I had Jesus weeping, and around the figure of Jesus would be many different fetuses. And isn't it, what passage is that where Jesus says, was asked, how many times should you forgive? Do you remember the answer? 7. What, isn't it 7?
7 times 7, 700. Or it's
yes,
an infinite number. Yeah.
7 times 70, right?
Yeah. And
what I thought about is taking that multiplication, mm-hmm. and I'm not good at math, as you can probably tell, but taking that multiplication of those two numbers that he suggested, and creating, yeah. How much? 490. Okay. And having 490 fetuses surrounding a representation of Jesus weeping. Oh, and wow. I still want to do that sculpture someday, because I think that would be very powerful. Yeah. Just to see that, right? And just visually, what an installation that would be. But I knew right away that the horror of it is not what I wanted to really suggest. I wanted to do a sculpture that wasn't of a dead fetuses. I wanted to do something that was just life. Mm. That's not always a counter argument to the abortionists. And so that's why I did the National Life Monument, which I just call life. Mm. Because when you put the word pro-life, it always is a reaction then, right? And yeah. I didn't want it. Yeah. I didn't want it to be a counterattack. I wanted just to do a beautiful sculpture of a pregnant, or a mother and child. The child just so happens to be in the womb.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted to do it in a way that kind of makes it mystical. So I have the womb area, this circular uh, uh, reflected material, so it would capture light, and it would just be brilliant, and it would just be everything, every line about it, all the contours would almost be like a whirlpool bringing you into that new life. And so I thought that we need a sculpture that is just a celebration of life and not an argument against why you shouldn't kill babies, right?
Right.
And I thought,
Yeah.
I thought if you can create a sculpture that can be placed in many different places where people look at a pregnant woman and say, "Isn't that nice? That's wonderful," right? And and so I created the sculpture, and the first huge cast of the piece is now in Washington, D.C., right across the street from the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception. How awesome is that?
Oh, yeah.
At the same time, and the same patrons supported the sculpture to go to Rome. The pro-life, they actually have a national pro-life organization. They installed it in San Marcello El Corso, one of the principal churches in the center of Rome. First pro-life sculpture in Rome. And I thought to myself, yes, and it's also the youngest representation of Jesus here too, right? But I didn't necessarily mean it. And I think the reason why I worked for your school is I didn't want any hard-fisted murdering babies as a bad. I just
Yeah.
wanted a celebration of life. And so I also made it that it's just a woman. The woman has a veil on it, but it could be any woman, right? It's not like
Okay.
absolute Mary. I interpret it that way because
Yeah.
I'm a Catholic. But if
Yes.
you're a Muslim, you'd probably see a Muslim in there. You know, they
Right.
wear the, or, you know, it's just a
Yeah.
design oriented thing, right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
wanted to be that open because I wanted it to be, in a sense, a monument for all to celebrate mothers, to celebrate motherhood. And the latest news on the piece, which I'm very happy about,
Mhm.
is the governor of Texas signed the bill for the sculpture to be installed at the state capitol in.
Oh, wow.
And yes, so this is very exciting about the piece. The piece for the state capitol is already done, waiting to be installed. The governor just signed the bill. It's going to be installed very soon. And again, the idea is I was interviewed by one of the Texas news medias there, and I ended the interview by saying, life is beautiful. Let's have more humans. And that's something that's really missing in our culture today that I'm afraid of, quite frankly.
Oh, same here.
We're in Canada, and we're not having very many births. We're not, you know, we're importing people, sure enough, but the whole idea of having births is something that's becoming rarer and rarer within our culture. And
We just hit it recently. It's official now that our population growth rate is flat. That we are not having our births are not are equal with the death rate in Canada right now. Like it's
is that including the 2 million immigrants that we bring in?
no, it doesn't include. That's the only thing that's increasing our population is immigration.
Yeah.
Our population is not growing based on
Yeah.
our birth rate at all, which is
Yeah.
so sad. So sad.
I was in Toronto and I was installing one of my Matthew 25 sculptures when I was sick. You visited me, and it's right near the Royal Ontario Museum. And I'm like looking at, you know, the installation, everything's going good and everything. People on the street, it's right on Bloor Street, right? And wait a minute, this is early in the morning. Then I see this woman with a baby carriage, young woman too. And I look around and I say, isn't that great? I just was very happy to see that on the sidewalks. And I peeked in the baby carriage. It was a dog.
Oh no.
Yeah, and
My
I'm like,
goodness.
I was tricked. Don't forget, this is Toronto here, right? But I thought of what Pope Francis said, and well, he was obviously he was against abortion, but he said to the Italians, people should have people, not pets. Start raising families.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about this, and I'm thinking, yeah, this is what's happening in our culture today, and it's not good, right?
Yeah.
And so to do a sculpture like this, that is a mother and child. The child just so happens to be in the womb, right? It's almost like a mirror being held up to someone. If you're going to hate that, if you're going to find a problem with that, it's a mirror up to yourself. Find a
Yeah.
problem with what's within you.
Yeah.
That you're angry against the idea of creating human life, right? And so, yeah, that's my sculpture. It's being installed in state capitol in Texas. I'm also doing a smaller one for a beautiful church in Boston, and my hope is that piece goes everywhere. And I've also created small miniatures of the piece and actually rosaries that pro-life organizations in America are using to raise money to help them help mothers. So if I can use my sculpture, turn it into a rosary, that means making it small, making smaller pieces of it, and helping these organizations that are helping mothers. That's a great tool for a sculpture.
Huge tool. And that sculpture, once again, in our school with our youth, to be reminded every day about life, so when they may be faced with challenges like that the automatic is, no, we say yes to life. Like this is, from conception to its natural end. This is who we are. This is what we believe. This is what we do. And we need to get that word out and instill that in our youth again. And that's so much why I want to have that in the front of, right in the center of our school, so that everybody can see it for forever. So that's another goal. We've got a lot of things to raise money for in our school.
Yeah.
There's many bills to pay, but this is one that I want to see and have it as part of the legacy of St. John Paul II Academy. Tim?
After we're done here, I want you to give me your address, and I'm going to send you a small version of the piece.
Oh.
So you can have a small version. Very small. You can have one.
Wow, wonderful. Thank you so much. And I'll put that in the forefront there to get the funds raised to get the big piece. So
Excellent.
Thank you for that. Tim,
No problem.
We're running out of time here, and I just wanted to say thank you for joining us here today on Catholic Education Matters, and so much appreciate it. And God bless you for all the work you do and for getting that message out through your artwork and through your sculptures. And please keep up the good work. Don't stop. You've done so much great work, and you've got a lot of great work to still do.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And it was nice taking this break and talking with you.
Thank you for listening to Catholic Education Matters. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow the podcast on your favorite listening platform, rate it, and also leave a review. Don't forget to share this episode with your friends and family to help spread the word about the impact of Catholic education. Be sure to listen again.